Good morning, doctor. Welcome back. Nice to have you.
Good morning, Venkatesh. Good to be again with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, our topic for today is family talk time. As part of our series on wellness, our wellness is very dependent on our key and most important relationships, which is with our family. And a very central component of that is our communication with our family and all of us being on the same page in our different emotional and other requirements. And which is why family talk time is actually very directly linked to our wellness. Hence, the topic as part of our series. And thank you so much, doctor, for talking about that. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Venkatesh. The spoken word is still carrying the lion's share of communication.
Right.
Now, irrespective of what you are communicating, irrespective of how you are doing it, etc., 99% depends upon the way you speak, the way the word is communicated and received and reciprocated and so forth. So, time assumes importance that way. If you are not talking properly and in time, then you are not communicating. Say again, there is no compulsion to have talk, but then without talk, communication is never complete.
Correct.
So we are going to take a look at that.
And we need to make time for it. And we need to make time for it. Correct. I mean, talking cannot happen just on the fly about mundane things. We also need to spend time talking about what's important, which is why you need to make time for it.
Right. So we are talking about talk time. The family part is equally important or even more important, because unless you are communicating and sending and receiving signals through the most important member of your universe, which is family, it's a dogmatic way of putting it. So family assumes a lot of importance, and a family becomes the building block of society. Without a family, the building block, which is the way we do everything to communicate everything. So the building block assumes a tremendous importance, and family is the underlying,
unit or brick.
Topic. So that's the way.
It's the brick on which society is built, correct? Or the bricks of families are what make up society. Absolutely.
Correct. So next slide, please. Now we say family. Now we'll keep on coming back to this word family, because that to my mind constitutes the most important testing ground for whatever you're doing. So there is an old saying: in time of test, family is the best. So this you can interpret in times of a crisis, and we say in times of test is crisis. There is a crisis, forget everything else and regroup around your family. And this logic can be extended beyond various boundaries that we have to cross. So if there is testing time, your family is your best time. So
or rather, your family is your most important support system. And for it to be able to stand by you in times of test, you need to invest in making it strong and being able to support you during our times of test. Absolutely.
Right. Next slide, please. Now, here one is reminded of the good old folk story about a farmer and his 4 sons or 3 sons or whatever, to plant themselves and then trying to get ready for the future and so forth. So the father of the family, whom you can see wearing a cowboy hat, gives a test to his sons. He gives the sons a bundle of sticks, and the bundle of sticks will have to be broken. And farmer said, guys, go ahead and break this bundle of sticks. And the son said, oh, big deal, I'll just break it. So he tried breaking it and didn't break at all. Then he realized that those sticks are still bundled up. And if they're bundled up, you cannot break. And if you want to break it, you have to disassemble, as they say, So this is very rudimentary, but it carries a very important message. If you want to really do something, so you have to sort of disengage them, loosen them up, and then be ready to face them. Because if you have a bundle of sticks and if you can't break it, you are not communicating, you are not doing anything. So you have to break the bundle.
Or rather, Yeah, and I think the other way of looking at it is a family strength comes from its being one bundle, and
Right,
you need to bind it together for it to be one bundle. And for
right,
it to operate as one bundle and be able to stand the test of time, you have to create those bonds, right? Like that rope holds those sticks together.
right.
That a family is one united bundle because of the ropes that bind it together. And I guess we are discussing that the talk is how you bind the family together and make it a strong bundle.
Right, right. True. Next slide, please. So the important, excuse me, family values come right on top of the list of things we have to honor and take care of. Now,
Right.
family values take the top post. Now, what do you mean by family values? What do you mean by values?
Correct.
Values are the very rock bottom basic principles on which you build anything. You can have a value for a company, you can have a value for a group of individuals or whatever.
Correct.
And whatever is true for family will also be true for that entity. And
Correct.
this importance is carried through in all our transactions and awareness. Now, importance
Correct.
of family values starts that way. And without their family values, your communication, your spoken word, etc., your non-verbal communication, etc., will be built. And
Right.
they make it strong. Now, if you are communicating something and it is based on strong family values, your communication has that weightage
Correct.
to reach the other person and create an atmosphere of wellness, if you like. And the family values, therefore, assume a tremendous lot of importance. Any, any comment, Venkatesh?
Yeah. So I think values of all our, all the members of society get built at home, right? And that's why we
Right,
call them family values, right? I guess
right,
it is first, before you're a citizen or anything, you're a member of your family. And to be a good member of your family, someone has to inculcate those values, which is
right,
why family values, if families are the building blocks of society, you build your values in your family. And how do you impart those values as parents? You
right,
communicate, right?
right,
So communication is central to creating the values that make people good human beings, and that's how they can then become, members of society, functioning, productive members of society.
right,
Absolutely.
right. Now, the power of togetherness is something to be appreciated. Now, if you are
Right.
together, as we saw in that story of a farmer and the sticks, if they
Correct.
are together, they are strong. If they are loosened up, they become weak and they break.
Correct.
So the power of togetherness is something to be appreciated. You
Correct.
have friends who got together, or you can have enemies who are together. Whichever way it is, the togetherness decides what and how you are going to be and live and communicate. So
Correct.
there is a power of togetherness which makes it all stronger with proper communication. And we'll see
Right.
more of that in the weeks, in the days ahead, or as we have more things to look at in family
Correct.
values. So the power of togetherness comes in there. Next slide, please.
Yeah. And togetherness, every individual is an individual. The only way you can be together is if you are able to align your individual thoughts. And that's why
Right,
communication is important, right? Unless you
right,
communicate, you are not
right,
going to be able to be together. Yeah.
right, right, right. Now, family members have to communicate, but within that, there's a small element of doubt in the
Right.
members of the family, which is only we will touch upon it in passing.
Right.
The same family, the brothers and sisters love each other and work together and they pull their weights together. But at the same time, there is an element of rivalry between the
Siblings.
siblings.
Correct.
And that has to be taken care of. If you don't take care of the rivalry part of it, your communication will fall apart.
Correct.
So we need not look at that. Sibling rivalry is a thing on which we can write epics like Mahabharata. Entire Mahabharata is based on sibling rivalry and so forth. That we will dispense with that right now and look at other aspects of communication, talking time. Now we are looking at talking.
Right.
Next slide.
I
Any
think,
comment?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's an important point, though. I'm glad you put it, because just because you are family members doesn't mean there are no tensions, right? Sibling
Right,
rivalry
right,
is one type of tension. But the tensions and stresses, because every individual, finally have their own independent views. They are trying to assert themselves in some way. It's most obvious with siblings. But for example, husbands and wives have stresses as well, right? As we are about to discuss, when there is a generation gap, there are stresses between parents and children. And communication is required to be able to go past it and to be able to find common ground. So it's important to recognize that family, it's not some idyllic thing where, everything in a family is going to be all roses and rose tinted. Communication is to see to it that you remain together despite the stresses and tensions. Is that a fair point, Doctor?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just touched upon sibling part of it because that has 2 or 3 dimensions to that. But we will look at it later on in some other workshop, maybe. Sibling rivalry can be a major topic for workshops.
Correct.
Now,
I'm making
back,
the link between that and communication. Why communication is required to manage the stresses.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Please continue, Doctor.
Yeah. So for any communication to be effective, this time spent on communicating should be of a high quality.
Yeah.
Now you can say I am spending time with my husband, wife, friends, family, whatever, and you are not doing it to the fullest extent possible. Then you are wasting the quality of your time spent in communication. Now the quality time will have to be created and appreciated by you. That's very important. Simply being physically together is not quality time. People pretend spending quality time, but most of them today are just looking at mobile phones and keep talking on the phones and so forth, and just sitting. Whether they are facing each other or whether they are facing on the opposite side of the universe, that quality time, that is a travesty of communication. So that has to be ensured that the way you manage your time should be of a high quality, for which some effort has to go in.
Correct.
So think properly and then plan your communication, and then only then your sibling communication or rival communication will take shape. So, next slide, please.
Yeah.
Now, today, particularly, communication has become a very, very complicated topic, and mostly on the negative side, which is very unfortunate because social media are dominating your behavior. And social media are a double-edged sword. Your social media can make a great person of you, or it can ruin your personality. Anything is possible because social media is like a tyrant. It has entered everybody's life now, whether it's a vegetable vendor or whether you are a managing director. Social media constantly 24/7 influences your behavior, and that has to be guarded against if you want to have a proper family talk. Now, it's very important because there are jokes and jokes and jokes about how family members sit on a dining table and then not even look at each other. They are just gazing through the mobile phone. And they may finish eating or they may not even finish eating and then they move on. The stage on which you are setting the background for communication is annulled. And so you have to make sure that you plan your communication. And social media must be put to rest at least for that period. If you decide to communicate, during that period of communication, your social media should not influence your behavior.
You have to be able to stay away from it enough to actually spend the quality time you mentioned just now. Correct.
Quite right. So communication is a double-edged sword for obvious reasons. And we can see more of it in times to come. And now we can look at the generation gap for family communication. Now that is another big entity. How do you tackle generation gap? Now, what is generation gap? You are communicating with your parents, siblings, friends, relatives, whatever. And every level there is a generation gap. It's not that you are communicating totally to twins who are just
in sync with each other. Yeah, it's never the case. Even twins are not.
Right. For example, I am from a family of 5 brothers, and my immediate brother, elder and younger, made the most of my life. And then whatever sibling rivalry or sibling happiness, whatever, will have to happen there. And that gap has to be bridged. If you want to make communication proper, that gap should be bridged.
Bridged.
Now, again, as any other topic on communication, volumes can be written on generation gap, which probably we will.
Correct.
And unless you have a properly broad, sort of concreted communication
Planned.
system,
Correct.
you cannot bridge the gap. And that also requires effort. It requires thinking, it requires application of mind,
Correct.
and it requires proper execution. Now,
Correct.
it is again easy to say there is no generation gap in my family, but that is not true at all, because generation gap is an integral, inevitable part of your life.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you are born with a generation gap. The moment you are born, you are born. So there is already a generation gap there. So
Correct.
it may sound very funny, but that's very important.
No, it's an important point. I think, like we are saying, that see, whether it is between parents and children, where the generation gap is most obvious, or even between grandchildren and grandparents, sometimes between elder siblings and younger siblings, generation gap is one type of difference of opinion, right? And to be able to create unity despite these differences requires you to talk about important things that matter. And I think that's the point you've been making. You have to plan it. You have to take out the time, number one. Then you have to put away your distractions, and then you need to really, really talk to each other, right? Without which there's no way to get over these, whether it's sibling rivalry or generation gap. Unless you talk, you can't bridge that gap. The only way to bridge that gap is talking.
Right. Very true. Very true. Now, technology again. Now, technology is touching on every aspect of our life, not just gripping our lives. And, as they said, Ramayana, Bhale prana bhi jaye, vachan na jaye. You can bring in technology. Prana bhi jaye, but technology na jaye. Mobile phone na jaye. Mobile phone is an integral, existential entity. And the consequence of that is that technology is, again, mobile phone is the most fundamental unit of technology.
Correct.
And it is destroying the quality of your interaction, because on a breakfast table or on a dining table, your own spouse is not paying attention to you. Or in the office also, you got a board meeting and every board director, mind you, this malady is across the board. No? It doesn't mean that it's only in executive life, but that is affecting everything. And there are people say during the meeting, put away the phone, but nobody does. So that is carried into that. So we have to manage that part of it, and we have to work out methodologies of managing. It doesn't happen. Nothing happens. Nothing ever happens in life just like that.
You have to do it. Yeah, you have to make the effort, and you have to be disciplined about it and give it the importance where you say, no, during this time, I will not. If the mobile is in the picture, then basically there is no family talk time.
Right. Very true. Very true. Now, another aspect is joint family. Touching upon that is the generation gap. Joint family and nuclear family are also affected by generation gap. And here you see a multivariate permutation and combination of family members. And today, too many families are joint. Many families are scattered apart. For example, in my own case, I have got cousins and uncles and aunts and brothers and sisters scattered across the globe. And you cannot call it a joint family, and you cannot call it a nuclear family, because most of these people are scattered, but then they are in touch with each other through mobile technology. So family system is becoming more complicated. For example, I have a friend of mine who has fixed time for a telephone call between Canada and America or whatever, Asia. So they have to plan their transcontinental powwow, if you like. And then that becomes an integral part of your family management, communication
or time management. Absolutely. Very important point. So I think technology can be a tool for it as well. For example, I guess, my brother and I, once a week, we by and large have across decades managed the discipline of talking once a week. Similarly, I know he talks to you a few times a week, right? And we use obviously the technology to be able to be in touch with each other, even though we are geographically separated. And that is actually, it doesn't happen. Even that won't happen unless we fix a time, fix a cadence, fix a rhythm, and say, look, once a week around this time, we will expect one or the other of us to call the other person. And
Right.
that's actually how we have the discipline and we are able to stay in touch, right? I think
Right. Very,
similarly, your brothers and you, like for example, your elder brother, Bhaskar uncle, and
yeah.
you communicate either over this podcast or otherwise at some
Yeah.
frequency, right? That's how the relationship remains alive.
Right. 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 Very true. Very true. Now, irrespective of what you're doing and how you are doing it and how you're communicating and so forth, you always have something in front of you by the way of a role model.
Right.
Now, like Venkatesh mentioned just now, you have a role model who
Correct.
may be sitting in Winnipeg, Canada somewhere, or you can have a role model just next to you on the dining table. But the
Correct.
role model is always there, and you are always being influenced by a role model. People can still say, "Oh no, I don't have a role model. I am my own role model," and so forth. But it's more easy to say that because you are
Correct.
continuously influenced by a person or a thing or an ideology that
Correct.
is influencing your communication. And
Correct.
there the role model comes up. And if it happens repeatedly, then what Aristotle said was right. You are
Correct.
what you repeatedly do. So
Correct.
here you are what repeatedly your role model makes you do, and so
Correct.
forth.
Correct.
And again, going back to my school days, I have a brother who is very good in English in those days.
Correct.
In Tamil medium, we were struggling to find words.
Correct.
And this particular brother of mine, immediate next brother, taught me how to pronounce words, how to roll up the R's and whatever. And
Right.
that was a role. He may be doing it for just 10 minutes before our interaction. Or
Right.
we could join some debate competition and then we are influencing each other's vocabulary and so forth. But then
Correct.
there is the role model. So I used to fight with that brother, mind you, that sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry is very much there, but in spite of that, sibling
Correct.
rivalry by definition should be managed. You
Correct.
cannot take your sibling rivalry to Mahabharat level and you are burning everything down. That cannot be your role model and so forth. But role model is there. Like
Yep.
they say, the elephant in the room. Now, after yesterday's Chinese situation, people say there is a dragon in the room. No, they say jokingly, the American fellow said there is a dragon in the room nowadays. There is not an elephant because they have to deal with all these complicated time management things. So, but the role model is there. Whichever word you use it, role model is very much there. Any comment, Venkatesh?
Yeah, no, and I think a very important point you made. You used the example of a brother, but
Yeah,
for example, even a father as a role model, mother as a role model, and so
right,
on. For that to be able to create that, whatever a role model does, you need time, right? Time is the one thing that without which all these things don't happen, and which is why carving out that time, whether it is talking over dinner or having one meal together or once a week going somewhere together and creating that opportunity to spend time with each other, that's when all these
right,
positive things can happen, right? If you don't
right,
have any mechanism or you don't set aside some time for it, even if each of
right.
the individuals is a very great individual, you will not get that positive benefit.
Correct, correct, very true, very true. So again, coming back to the very fundamental building block, if you like, is an
Correct.
effective communication. You can
Correct.
call it a building block, or you can call it a personality trait.
Correct.
Are you communicating? Are you effective in communicating, etc., etc.? There are hundreds
Correct.
of questions, shades of nuances of integration.
Right.
All that together will be your effective communication.
Correct.
Effective communication can be, say, very effective just by a glance, or you
Correct.
can spend somebody an hour with somebody, or a day with somebody, or even a month with somebody, and still not
Correct.
communicate effectively.
Correct.
It can happen. So you're just physically together, but you are not effective because you are not communicating, and therefore you are not effective. You get into a vicious cycle and so forth.
Correct.
There are ways and ways of looking at this.
Correct.
Again, that brings us to communication as such,
Correct.
which we can say familial communication, which can be an extended entity, as we are
Correct.
doing. Talk time, we
Correct.
can call it talk time, and
I think
that, yeah,
the very most important thing in the talk time is that you have made time for each other. I think like this picture is showing, you're supposed to be with others, but you are effectively everyone is looking at their phone in this picture, right?
right,
And the very minimum of effective communication is you need to be present. And to your
right,
point earlier, if you communication is giving and receiving signals, You should be open to receiving and giving signals. If your mind is somewhere else, if your attention is somewhere else. So I would say even before anything else, attention. You give attention to the person in front of you is the building block, and that's what you carve out time for, right? You don't say it will just happen in the middle of the day, running here and there. You say we need to spend time together. That's how attention will be given. Sorry, my apologies. I think.
No, that's fine. So
no. I
loyalty.
think I clicked on the last slide. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. For all this, you require sincerity, honesty, and integrity, which will together form loyalty. No, within the family,
Correct.
Family talk time means what? Family. You are loyal to something.
Correct.
What are you loyal to? It's not a company, it's not an army, it's not a police force or something to which you claim loyalty and you demonstrate your loyalty. At home, you should communicate your loyalty to other family members.
Right.
It may sound silly. You may take this for granted, which is bad. People take familial loyalty for granted. Mera bhaja hai, mera bhatija hai. No, you don't take that too. So take him very seriously, take him sincerely, and show your loyalty to him in thoughts and in deeds. Now, loyalty has to be in thoughts and in deeds, and so forth. Loyalty again can be another topic for an in-depth discussion. Where does loyalty begin and end, and so forth. But that is a vital element in effective talk time. Talk about. Any comment, Venkatesh?
Yeah, no, I think loyalty is both the raw material for this, and it is the finished good, as it were. It is when you're loyal to each other, you show it by spending time with each other. That's the best way to signal that you are there for the other person, and that when the chips are down, that you will be there. Comes from the spending that time. Once you spend that time, you develop the loyalty as well, right? And so that's why I think loyalty, which is, like you said, in times of test, family is the best. It comes from the loyalty that does not have an agenda, right? Where you know that they will stand by you irrespective of how difficult it is. That doesn't come, that doesn't come unless you spend the time on it. So loyalty is both how you build that connect, and then it is the product of that connect, right? I think what we have been saying today, this is the last slide. So any concluding comments before I summarize, Doctor?
No, that's your department anyway. So you summarize and communicate. You summarize and communicate. Or communicate and summarize.
Yeah, I think the thrust of our, the very simple thrust of our topic today was you build the bonds of a strong family only by talking to each other, right? Doesn't mean there are no stresses, whether it is sibling rivalry, stresses between husbands and wives, and generation gap between elders and youngsters. There is always some stress, right? When human beings are together. But you have to talk, communicate, and it needs to be quality communication. First and foremost, you need to be present, as they call it. You need to, you have to put aside your devices, you need to put aside all your distractions and spend time. If you do that investment, you create the bonds of loyalty, and those bonds of loyalty will allow you to be able to fall back on the most important support system in your life, which is your family, right? Technology is not necessarily an enemy. You can use technology, for example, to talk to your extended family. Quite often, even 4 members of a family sort of are in different directions or in different places in the world. Technology can be a positive tool as well, but it has to be a good slave. It can't be the master, right? And all the positive benefits, like role models of parents, elder siblings, or even younger siblings, come only from the investment of that time, and that's why family talk time, right? Thank you so much, Doctor, for today, and look forward to the next talk. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.